It's burning! It's burning! Oh, I'm Shay.
Call the fire department.
Yeah,
This is Dave.
I'm Shay. So I want to show you this is Life is Feudal. This is what happens when you build off deed. Your stuff all burns to the ground, or off, they call it the personal claim. This is in the player versus environment zone. Um, it takes just a few days for this to happen. We actually built a bunch of these shacks when we were traveling before we settled down, and they would be gone within a week. I mean, just that would be it. They'd be leveled. So it's just a few days before all your stuff burns to the ground. Fences, houses, everything.
Even your well.
Your well, unfortunately, yes. So I just wanted to show what happens in this game when you're not on a claim. Hey, I'm Shay, and I'm here with Dave.
Hey, everybody.
And we're in Life is Feudal now, and I want to talk a little bit about personal claims, and in Wurm they call it deeds, and walls. So in this game, you can see these little pads. This is the largest pad you can have in player versus environment area. Now, I've never played player versus player in this game, but from what I read online, they say you can have a guild claim in the player versus player area of 4,900 tiles. This is 250 tiles. In player versus environment, this is the biggest you can have. And this is paid for with real money. And then if you don't want to, it's 20 bucks a month to get a claim like that. Or, yeah. And then if you don't want to pay real money, you can get a claim this size. This is 10 by 10. And in between each of these claims, then we have another 10 by 10 over there. And you can use game money to pay for these 10 by 10 claims. You don't have to pay $20 a month for each pad. I worked out, this is just a premium character in this game. It's $20 a month, and then you get the free, is it 250 tile pad? So this is, yeah. This is a 100 tile pad. This one here is 100 tile, and the other one is 250. I worked it out. I think it's $7.24 a month if you want to pay real money for each of these pads, up to 250 tiles per pad. But that's as big as you can make it. And then in between each of these little pads, there's like a little border line where you're not on deed anymore. You're not, or sorry, that's Wurm speak. You're not on a personal claim in between, for 2 tiles in between. So the issue here is fence building, or wall building, so you can keep griefers out, or people that want to loot your property, or harass you, or cut down your trees or something. If you build a fence, the fences that are not on your deed or your claim can just burn to the ground. So you've got like 2 tiles of fence that every few days would burn to the ground. So I don't really know how people.
Yeah, it's a very attractive feature. Not at all.
Yeah, so if you were to put, you could see if you were to put a fence just around this 250 tile claim here, and then put one around each one, you'd feel very confined in the space. I mean, you'd be able to put a house, maybe we have one over there with a house on it. I guess I can show how confined that space feels. If you were to put a fence around it, or a wall around it, you'd feel very enclosed. It'd be like kind of a slum city you'd be living in. And you can't really, if you were to put claims, 10 by 10 claims all along, you can't really build a wall around it because that would function, because every few days the wall would be burned to the ground. So this was an issue. I'm trying to cover issues that come up when you're a longer time player rather than like the initial starting phases. So, because this is what I was wondering when I started is, yeah, but what happens when you've been playing a while? Is it as good as Wurm? And what are the differences? Should I invest my time in becoming really good at this? Skill building a character and everything.
I wish you had time to show me inside the house, but that's for another time, I think.
Oh, I can walk inside the house for a minute.
But you were talking about paying with real money versus paying with, game money. And of course, the game money requires making things that you then take to the trading post and either sell to the crown, as they call it, or to other players. So it could be anything from peas that you grow in your garden to weapons or lots and lots of things. I can't even think of other examples right at the moment.
Yeah, as I said before, the trading in this game is so much. It's so robust. I mean, people actually do trade in this game, and you have to trade in this game. So,
But then that requires you being going in harm's way every time you go to sell, because you got to go leave the PvE server area and go to a PvP player versus player area where the trading centers are. So there's always a chance of getting mugged, I suppose.
yeah. So, anyway, I just wanted to talk about the the issue with the claims and how the claim can only be so large in this game. In just the player versus environment, they've made this strange rule that doesn't apply apparently to player versus player that kind of leaves us more open because we can't build large walls around our cities. And we could build just around these little tiny squares, but that's not really an enjoyable environment to live in. So I'm gonna go flip over to Wurm and show the difference between what it's like living in Wurm versus living on these little tiny squares and being exposed to the outside, to other players basically attacking you.
Right.
So this is our property in Wurm. I'm going to take you on a tour of it. We no longer own this property because it's been 2 years since we last played or so, and this is all starting to decay. Like the walls are all moldy, that means they're decaying. It's going to take a few minutes because it's rather large. But these walls, notice, are still here even after 2 years. They are wearing down, but they're still here. They're off deed, in other words. And we owned all this property with an exception of a couple of borders. We had, actually, this was 3 deeds, and there were some borders between the deeds that we had to maintain the fences on and stuff, but most of this was on deed. And, you can just deed all of this. It's no big deal. It does cost money. I think you can pay in-game money, but that was way too tedious for us. And we just paid real money, which you can do in Wurm. You can choose which way to pay for your deed. And this whole property cost us $70 a month to maintain, which is quite a bit, but if you see how large it is, you don't have to have anywhere near this large of a property. I'm not even sure if this is still in our property or not. I think this is a little off property. Yeah, there's where our fence line used to be, so this is our property here.
And as you see, the fence eventually deteriorates enough that it disappears. But that's after a long time.
Yeah, and all this while, the fence is here. You know, we don't have player versus player in our game. People generally can't loot your stuff because, for one thing, it's on deed, but even if it weren't on deed, you can lock things. But all this wall was actually mainly to keep out trolls, because trolls are hard to fight off in this game, and we just don't like to fight. So we had a fence to make it all safe, and plus our villagers, who were little people, we're older people, and we play games with other older people, and all the older people actually don't like dealing with fighting and bears, and we actually tamed the bears, but they were scared of the bears. So I can't seem to figure out how we got around this property. Yeah. This was kind of on the outskirts. Ah, there we go. So we kept everything out so that all people they don't have to deal with fighting or bears or, I mean, nothing was getting in here. And then, so they could just,
They could walk around on deed in their underwear if they wanted.
yeah. And they didn't have to worry about anything, they just farm. Farming is, if people, I've noticed a lot of people like farming. Thank you, Farmville, for that. And so they could just farm or terraform or build their little houses or whatever it is they wanted to do without having to worry about being attacked. Because some older people don't like to be attacked, and that's just how it is. And personally, I don't like being attacked either, even though I'm experienced with it and it doesn't even stress me out that much. I just would rather not have to deal with stuff, predators and stuff like that. Okay, so here we go. Still on deed. This is our little river that we built out to the ocean with little bridges. And I'm just showing you all this to give you a sense of how large of an area you can have in the PvE area in Wurm. And they really like this because, like I said, we're paying $70 a month for this deed. I mean, they make a lot of money off of us. Plus, every character, as we talked about before in this game, to get past 20 experience points in any given skill, you have to be a premium character. In this game, it costs, well, it's in euros, so it depends. It's 7.99 euros, and depending on the exchange rate, at the time, a couple years ago, I was saying it was approximately $10. Right now, it's about $8, and so it's like $10 per character. Technically, you only, unlike in Life is Feudal, you really only need one character because there's no skill cap. We each had two characters because we like to play two characters at a time. It makes it a little less tedious to play two people. Plus, this has auto fighting, so you can bring a bunch of people into battle in your cart, and they'll all fight the evil person, the troll or whatever. I hate to call them evil people, actually.
Our ships.
These are our ships. Something else Wurm has that Life is Feudal doesn't have yet. They say they're gonna make ships eventually, but they don't have them yet. This used to be a dock area. Some of the dock has deteriorated. So we're still going around the outer edges of the property here. This is like where we never went. This is where our fence line used to be. And we lived in the interior. We didn't really come out to this area that much.
And even next to the water, there is a little danger. They have crocodiles that will attack you, and even the bears will go swimming uh, and can attack. Just a little bit of lag there, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's because I have Life is Feudal running at the same time. Actually, this is a pretty light game. Like I said, you can play 2 characters at the same time. It doesn't. We have what do you call it? Good computers, gaming computers. So we're still in the area that we used to have deeded.
Actually, there's
I can't get into this fence because one of my other player characters owns it. And we haven't set the permission. So what were you saying? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
there's property over across the bay that we had to the left.
Oh yeah, we had all that property over there,
Deer Park.
which we called Deer Park. We hadn't really developed on it yet. We were planning on developing kind of I don't even remember. Well, when we first got there were a bunch of deer, so we called it Deer Park. And then we couldn't find any deer. There are tons of animals around here. And horses, unicorns, we pass, sheep. That's because those were the animals we were breeding. So they've kind of bred and become prevalent in this area, but we could never find deer. I think our neighbor killed the deer that were at Deer Park and then they never came back. We never could find any more deer after that. So this area used to be our main area. You can see we have fences, large gates to get in. And that's where we mostly lived. And it was sort of in the middle of our property. And out here we had, where I'm taking to the outskirts, we had farms and this is a zoo. CLNCC, Wild Animal Park and Sanctuary.
You probably won't have time to show them the deeded mine that we had too. It's not much to look at anyway, but it was a huge mine.
Running all under this actually is a mine. Well, maybe not the whole thing, but up here.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Close to the whole thing.
This, maybe not down by the docks, but up here where we've been going uphill a bit. You can see this kind of goes uphill. I don't know if you could tell with all the trees. You can see the line of the walls that we had. So Deer Park, this isn't Deer Park. The zoo runs a long ways that we had all deeded, and we enclosed it so people couldn't get in. But anyway, under here, under this hill area, there's mines all running up under here. These are all our deeded mines, and
I actually connected them all together.
So we're coming here. We used to have a seal park where we kept seals because seal meat makes special recipes. And we're coming back around. I actually didn't go all the way around the property because of the gates had locked us out of the part with the zoo. And this is coming back around to where we started. Soon, I guess we're still not there. Any minute now. So you can see how large of a property we had.
This bridge that we're coming up to was one of the first bridges that we ever built. Get a glimpse of it there.
Yeah, I had actually started there. I can come back around to the beginning and show the whole bridge. You can see it.
It's kind of overgrown with trees in parts, so it's a little difficult to navigate.
There is a view of it down here. And we had a little monastery under the bridge by a lake that has fallen down because it's been a couple of years since we played. But you can see all of this was deeded in the PVE area. We had quite a large expanse. We didn't have to feel like we were enclosed in the city because the wall is so large that when you're inside, you don't even notice the wall. And we could do anything we wanted. Nobody bothered us. Nobody could bother us. And if they did, we could lock them out because we had all these fences here. So we could, if someone were to come in and try to grief us, we could just lock them out of the property. And there were edges to the property, like along the main road, that were not deeded, that someone could theoretically come in and grief us. And if they did that, we would just lock them out of our gates and they wouldn't be allowed in anymore. And that would be that.